Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 132. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
All right, so tonight we have something a little different. Actually, very different. I won't even say a little.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've kind of teased you guys on this outside of the recordings, so I'm very excited to have finally finished my research on this. And as I was saying before we hit record, this could have been a 3-episode thing easily, but I have shaved it down. So anyone who wants to know more, I highly recommend. There's a documentary that's out about this. I highly recommend checking that out. You can watch it on YouTube, but I wanted to keep this within about an hour's length, so I don't want to over bombard you guys with realistically, it's the fact that some of these like reports will come up again and again and again, and there's no reason to repeat the same thing a million times.
Fair enough. And also my short attention span appreciates you for that.
Right. And it's funny because this still falls under our purview. There are still murders, which we'll get to at the end of the entire thing. But this is bizarre. And there's no teaser here because there's so much in here that I don't want to tease one aspect and then have to have you guys sit through everything else waiting to see what the hell I was talking about. So and it's a pain that way. But we're going to be covering an area of Massachusetts known as the Bridgewater Triangle.
Ooh.
I don't know what hi, checking in from Massachusetts. I don't know what that is.
I didn't know what it was until about 6 months ago. And it blows my mind that I didn't know about this.
Wow, me when I never leave my house or the city of Boston.
Well, I'm telling you, when you hear all of this, you're literally gonna ask yourself, how did I grow up in New England and not have heard any of this? And I'm not kidding. I didn't hear a single thing on this list ever. And yet it is widely reported.
Fascinating. All right. You know what? You have teased me. You've teased me by telling me about a triangle. I'm ready. Okay.
So here...
Apparently shapes is all it takes.
She's really into geometry.
These goddamn nerds, these math nerds.
Geometry just turns her on, I guess.
And I wish that was a joke, but like I do get excited about geometry.
Fair.
So sorry.
Fair.
I got an engineering degree for a reason.
Fair enough. All right, so here we go.
Shapes.
So the Bridgewater Triangle is a roughly 200 square mile triangle in southeastern Massachusetts. Within its border, there has been reported an unusual amount of paranormal and strange activity. It's sort of like the Bermuda Triangle in many ways. Its epicenter is mostly the 17,000-acre Hockomock Swamp, as well as the Freetown Fall River State Forest, but it isn't limited to just those areas.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, just a connection to the Hockomock. That's where I played all of my high school sports. So I'm going to blame this triangle on why I was so bad at them. Thank you very much.
Fair enough.
I was going to say, do they curse your sports ability there?
Well, yeah, we were the Hockomock League.
Get out of here. That's so funny.
Yeah, for real.
I have not heard the name Hockomock before studying this case, and you played in the Hockomock League? I had no idea.
Yeah.
So the triangle's points are at Abington at the tip of the triangle, Freetown at the bottom right or southeastern part, and Rehoboth at the southwest. There isn't a definitive answer for why there's so much activity in this area. However, it is widely agreed that it might be due to the way Massachusetts settlers treated the Native American population when they first got here. So, we're going to go back. Here's a little history lesson. So I know you like your history lessons, Joyous.
You know I do.
In 1675, Massachusetts was essentially two groups, the Massachusetts Bay Colony and the Plymouth Colony. Long list short, at least as short as I can make it, it was in the summer of 1675 that local Native American population, consisting mostly of the Wampanoag or Pokanoket tribes, had had enough of the English settlers' kind of bullshit coming into their property, taking the land, whatever. Because, the Native Americans didn't really believe in property that way.
Mm-hmm.
So they were led by a chief Metacom who would become known later as King Philip.
Oh, no kidding.
Now, Metacom was the second son of Massasoit, who was the tribal leader that formed an alliance with the Mayflower Pilgrims in 1621 and helped them get settled into this new world. So when Massasoit died, Metacom became chief in 1662, and Plymouth leaders gave him and his tribe English names, as they do. And that's when Metacom became known as Philip. That same year, in 1662, the Plymouth colonists began to suspect that the Native Americans might be planning to attack their colony, which, the fact that this goes all the way back to the beginning blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Like, don't trust your neighbors, right? So
No way.
they arrested Philip's brother, who they named Alexander. He stood trial, and he had to prove his loyalty to them before the English released him. But while he was in their custody, he had contracted a disease, and on his way home, he died. And as you can imagine, this made King Philip very angry. And rumors began to spread among the Wampanoags that Alexander had been poisoned by the colonists, which may have been true for all we know. So there were other tensions during these next few years, a lot of it revolving around land disputes, which were mostly settlers saying they wouldn't encroach on certain areas and then going on and doing exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
So in March of 1671, tensions were so high that Philip finally did something that the colonists took as a signal that he was getting ready for war. He had raised an army of warriors and marched them into the town of Swansea in Plymouth County. But he didn't attack anyone. Now, the colonists demanded that Philip come to the town of Taunton and explain why he had done that. And the colonists kept trying to push Philip into inciting a battle or to get the consent from the entirety of Massachusetts to start one themselves. So they were pushing for this war to exterminate the Native Americans.
They were loving the opportunity, huh?
Yeah. So their chance finally came when an elder Native American named John Sassamon, that worked with the settlers as an interpreter, had been murdered. And it was thought that 3 Wampanoag tribesmen had done it, and they were tried and hanged for it. But people also thought that maybe Philip had ordered it, because maybe they thought he wanted to start the war, but I don't think that's likely. Regardless of the reason, it wouldn't change anything, and King Philip's War began in Swansea, Massachusetts on June 24th, 1675, and that became the first official battle of the conflict. Colonial troops marched on Mount Hope, which was King Philip's base of operations, hoping to capture or kill him. But Philip had already fled, and his people had attacked the town of Middleborough and then Dartmouth, Massachusetts in July of 1675. The battle went on for the rest of that year, and in the meantime, Christian Native Americans throughout the colony were rounded up and imprisoned to prevent them from joining Philip's army. Again, sounds awfully familiar.
A little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on and the colonists had trouble locating where Philip and his men were, English troops led by Captain Benjamin Church got lucky and found Philip's camp near Bridgewater. And then obviously Church led an attack on that camp. Now Philip managed to escape, but his wife and son were captured and they were sold into slavery.
Oh, shit.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
Classic colonists.
At the time, I'm not really surprised. Yeah.
That's what they were doing. Anyone who wasn't one of them was less than human, so.
Exactly. So on August 12th of that year, Church received a tip that Philip was in the Wampanoag village called Mount Hope. He assembled some soldiers and found Philip's small camp of warriors near a place that later became known as King Philip's Seat and is still known that way today. Philip was shot where he was sitting by a Native American defector named John Alderman, who was part of Church's party.
Whoa.
Crazy that you're betrayed by your
It's
own.
pretty fucked.
Yeah. Philip was then hung and drawn and quartered.
Fuck.
Yeah, that was because the punishment for what they considered treason against the crown, that was the punishment at the time.
Ugh.
So Church gave Phillips's head to the defector John Alderman as a reward.
Oh, God.
John Alderman then sold the head to Plymouth authorities
What?
for 30 shillings, and it was placed on a stake in Plymouth County where it remained for 25 years.
Oh.
Ooh.
The 4 quartered body parts were strung from 4 different trees where they hung until they wasted away.
Ew.
Now, Philip has become known as one of the greatest Native American leaders in their history, and King Philip's War remains the bloodiest conflict in American history per capita, with 5% of Massachusetts' combined population being killed, which equal to about an estimated 500 English settlers and about 3,000 Native Americans having died.
Holy hell.
It's fucking crazy. And, I don't remember that from my early history lessons here in Massachusetts.
Nope. I certainly don't either.
Not at all. I
Don't
mean,
like to talk about that, do they?
no, we get pictures to color of picnic tables with Native Americans and settlers having a turkey together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is why so many people believe this area is probably cursed, and around that time is when these strange occurrences supposedly began.
Interesting.
So, since Philip's demise happened in the Hockomock Swamp, we will begin there. And some of these things, as I said earlier, some of these things repeat, so I'm just going to give you 1 or 2 if it's very repetitive, because I don't want to have a whole list of reported sightings of things if we don't have to repeat it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hockomock Swamp is 17,000 acres large and runs through Bridgewater, Easton, Raynham, Taunton, West Bridgewater, and parts of other towns around them. It's been seen as sacred land to the Native Americans, as we have found bones there as well as burial grounds.
Oh.
Yeah. People say that when they go in or around the swamp, they get this feeling of being watched or followed, and sometimes get uncomfortable and start to feel sick. There are also numerous different reports of biped creature sightings, as well as enormous birds, giant cats, and red-eyed dogs.
What kind of biblical crud is this?
It's not all that far from you, bro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, I spent a lot of time in this area.
Yeah, I've been through it a couple times, but I've never been down to the actual Hockomock Swamp itself, so I think I'm going to make a trip. I do. So,
All right, well,
Yeah, I mean, it's so nearby. At least go see what
decontaminate
you
yourself
feel.
for a couple weeks before you come anywhere near
why
us.
would I decontaminate myself? It's not poisonous.
No.
Yeah, but of the curse.
Oh,
The
the
curse.
Yes, well, we'll see as we go. I'm just going to start there. So, all of these things have been reported inside the swampland as well as the towns running through it. There's a person named Lauren Coleman, who's a famous cryptozoologist who moved from California to Cambridge in the 1970s, where they became fascinated with the Bridgewater Triangle. He was the one who actually figured out where the triangle points were, and he was the one who coined the term the Bridgewater Triangle in his book Mysterious America.
Mm.
In 1970, many people reported that they saw a huge, hairy, ape-like thing in the area, sometimes standing on 2 legs, other times running on all 4s.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, believe it or not, yeah, that's what they kind of thought it was.
Massachusetts Bigfoot. Let's fucking go.
For 2 days in 1970, the Bridgewater Police, as well as the Massachusetts State Police, did a massive search using search dogs. But they believed, because no one believes in fucking Bigfoot, they believed they were looking for a bear. But they didn't end up finding anything, which is also creepy. You'd think they'd at least found a bear, right? In
They just find evidence of a bear.
Yeah, like shit in the woods, right?
Yeah, like a bear hole.
Something, but no, nothing. In 1978, 2 men reported that they shot what they thought was a bear in the swamp. But when it was hit, it cried out like a human. And these two just straight up ran away.
Sorry, what now?
Yeah. So they saw what they thought was a bear, shot it, it screamed out like a human, and then these two fuckers just ran away. Like,
it was probably a person.
That's what I'm saying. Like, don't go up and see if you accidentally shot somebody, right? Fucking idiots.
Right. Crazy.
That same year, 2 police officers were sitting in their car by the Hockomock Swamp, and they both reported that they felt the rear end of the vehicle lift up off the ground. And when they looked back behind them, they said there was a giant hairy man holding up the back of the car.
Whoa.
They freaked out, and the creature dropped the car and ran off into the woods.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Both of these men reported that they saw it and then immediately retired from law enforcement.
Holy shit.
Wow. That's huge reaction.
Yeah, they said this thing was over 7 feet tall.
Oh,
They're like, no, I'm good. I actually don't ever want to be near this swamp. I gotta go.
Right? I mean, how do you protect and defend, right?
Right. They're like, actually, I'm good. And someone else can do that.
So in that documentary that I mentioned earlier about the triangle, there's also a guy who is now a paranormal investigator named Carlston Wood, and he recounts a terrifying story. In the winter of 1970, he was young, and he claims that he and a few of his friends, other kids, would go into the swamp to play, as kids do. He said they were about a mile in when one of the kids started screaming that there was a huge hairy man standing nearby. They all turned, and this man said that they all saw it, this hairy, huge man. And then they all ran home as fast as they could. Again,
that's scary. What the fuck?
It's crazy. So there's either
That's
a mountain
lot of people
man.
seeing the same thing together.
Exactly. And that's why it's kind of hard to just dismiss it. There's a resident named Joseph DeAndre. In the winter of 1978, he reported that he and his friend went out into the swamp because they had heard about this thing, and they wanted to see if they could find it for themselves. He claimed that at one point, he suddenly felt compelled to turn around and look at the pond. And when he did, he saw a huge man with long dark hair all over, standing there looking right at him. He turned and asked his friends to basically say, hey, are you seeing this? But of course, once the friend turned, the thing was gone.
Of course.
Ooh, spook.
There are a lot more reports, but these are the ones that I thought were, the most credible. So, quote unquote.
But how many of these would actually be taken seriously?
Well, that's the thing. Obviously not too many if we don't have watch out for Bigfoot signs everywhere. I mean, who knows? Maybe there are some out in that swamp. I don't know.
Right? Who knows?
So those are the Bigfoot sightings. We're going to move on to some sightings of huge cats.
Oh?
Yep. Now, these huge cats have been written about in legitimate newspapers. One of them was dubbed the Mansfield Mystery Cat, which started being widely reported about in 1993. Now, reports say it was a huge tan cat, which was bigger than a mountain lion.
Holy crap.
Whoa.
And it was also reported in the town of Easton as well as Mansfield. There were also sightings of a Black Panther-sized cat in the swamp areas. Around this time in May of 93, the decapitated body of an African serval cat was found near the town of Easton.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Someone have an exotic pet?
Yeah, a serval is like a long-legged, it's like a small cheetah sort of looking thing, but it has really long legs. So this thing was decapitated. The head,
Yikes.
yeah, the head had cleanly been severed and was missing. So, and the body showed no other signs of injury. So it's not like it was attacked and eaten. Bizarre.
Yeah, that's weird in nature.
Up next, the giant birds. There have been giant birds spotted flying over the Hockomock Swamp. They're actually thought to be thunderbirds, which are an ancient bird which is basically extinct and shouldn't be flying around Massachusetts.
Whoa.
Crazy. In Algonquin mythology, the thunderbird controls the upper world, while the underworld is controlled by the underwater panther or a great horned serpent, depending upon which myth. The thunderbird is said to throw lightning at the underground creatures, and it creates thunder by flapping its wings. So people think that these birds that they're seeing might be either this bird, because they're basically, when they're described, some of them describe them like an ancient pterodactyl type thing.
Whoa.
Supposedly, these things have a 12-foot wingspan.
What?
That's
Holy
fucking
shit.
crazy.
And there have been dozens of reports on these things. In 1971, a Norton police sergeant named Thomas Downey said that he saw a huge bird that was 6 feet tall with a 12-foot wingspan while he was driving down Winter Street in Mansfield, which is appropriately known as Bird Hill. He said he watched it.
How is this like the size of an ostrich? Sorry, we're getting into birds, and I'm like, now I need to look up bird facts.
So imagine, so it's bigger than an ostrich. So imagine it's standing as tall as a man, so maybe as tall as an ostrich. But when it opens up its wings, you get a picture of a 6-foot wingspan on both sides.
Right.
So this is huge.
Crazy.
So
Apparently the albatross
he's right.
can get to 11.5 feet.
Well, he said he just watched it as it stood there, and then it spread its wings and slowly lifted up into the air and flew away. He said he
I think I'd
didn't.
shit my pants.
He said he didn't immediately report it to newspapers, but he started slowly telling other people because he felt he needed to get it off his chest that he saw what might be a pterodactyl, basically. Just fucking crazy.
Yeah, I feel that.
A lot of newspapers wanted to do interviews with him, but he kept refusing and he wouldn't talk about it, which is, I guess, lends credit to the story. Unless he didn't want to get caught in a lie.
But I'm like, he's scared so shitless. He's like, I don't want to make the bird mad.
Right. I might come back after him. Like fucking Jeepers Creepers or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's the birds. Just one quick story about the red-eyed dog that was seen in 1976. So an Abington resident reported that he watched a huge black dog, which was roughly the size of a small horse, rip open the throats of his 2 ponies, killing them. He said,
what the fuck?
He said he shot at it, but it got away. And for 3 days, he, his neighbors, and local law enforcement went out trying to hunt this thing because they thought it might be a dire wolf.
Oh.
Damn.
Yeah. They couldn't find anything again, and he claimed that it was a huge black dog with fiery red eyes.
That's crazy.
So those are the bestial creatures that have been supposedly seen in and around the Hockomock Swamp. But now we're going to cover something even more terrifying, in my opinion.
How?
Because they're not just animals. Yeah, these are something very different. So this guy claimed that he saw what is known as a puckwudgie.
Oh, what now?
Yeah, and that's a weird word to say out loud now that I've said it out loud. A puckwudgie. Now, puckwudgies are small troll-like creatures associated with the Wampanoag in Native American folklore and are sometimes spotted in and around the Hockomock Swamp. They're said to be about 2 or 3 feet tall. They're supposed to have big noses, big fingers, big ears, and smooth gray skin. So this man named William Russo had an encounter that for decades he didn't tell anybody about. However, over time, as he was getting up there in age, he felt that people should know about what happened to him. So in 1990, He was walking his dog, which was a Rottweiler German Shepherd mix named Samantha, and one night, while he was taking her for a walk, he took a slightly different route than he normally did.
Big mistake.
Right? Exactly. If you're going to walk your dog, keep to your routines, right? Because we all know...
Yeah, there might be a dire wolf out.
Not only that, but we all know from too many of these cases, when you're walking your dog, you're going to find a body.
Oh, yeah.
This is true.
You're either fishing or you're walking your dog or you're on a run. That's how they're almost all found. It's so creepy.
That's right. So don't do any of those things. Noted.
Yes, right. So at some point along his walk, there was a street light at the road that was sort of casting a big circle of light on the side of the road. When he got down to the road, he said Samantha, his dog, started pulling at her leash. And he looked down and saw that she was shivering. And then he heard something. He turned and he saw what he said is a pukwudgie. It was about 3 or 4 feet tall, standing in the middle of that streetlight. It was standing on 2 legs, covered in hair. It had a pot belly and a face that had eyes slightly too big for its head, or at least a human head, I guess. He said at first glance he thought it was a child because it was so small, but then the closer he looked, he thought it actually looked like it might be getting to old age. Then the thing spoke to him in a high-pitched sound.
No. Not okay.
And he heard it say, and this is me doing my best to replicate this phonetically from the way this guy described it in the documentary. He heard this thing say, "E-wan chew. E-wan chew. Cur. Cur." He said it kept repeating that over and over again as it was beckoning him. Go ahead.
I'm just like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
He said he believes the creature was trying to say, "He wants you. He wants you. Come, come." How fucking creepy is that? Yeah, right?
No. Run, Forrest, run.
So the man said that he didn't feel threatened in any way. He didn't think it was going to attack him or anything, but he said that it was definitely trying to get him to go over to it. He said he and his dog Samantha were both terrified, so they ran home. And he didn't speak of it for 20 years because he didn't think anybody would believe him. And I don't blame him. I don't think I would have told anyone either.
Yeah.
You gotta wonder how many people may have disappeared from the area because they went over to these things. Which, again, I don't know that I believe in these, but it's fascinating regardless.
It's really, really spooky.
So the next thing we're going to talk about real quick are phantom fires. People have reported seeing phantom fires on the shores along the lake out there, and sometimes they'll even see tribal dancers around this fire. And sometimes they'll hear chanting, but when they get closer, there's nothing there.
Spooky.
People will see fire through the trees when they're in the swamp, but everything feels off about it because they can't hear the fire crackling, nor can they smell any smoke. And if they get closer to it, just like the others, they're just gone. So, bizarre. I don't know how to explain that one. But there's a lot of reports on that. And again, that's something I kind of hope I see. Yeah, if I go there, that's what I want to see. Something less threatening.
Absolutely.
Something less threatening than a little 2 to 3 foot creature beckoning me. You know?
Yeah, man, that's fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie.
So on to the next topic here. We're going to talk about some weird rocks that are found in the area. There's something called the Dighton Rock, which is a 40-ton boulder that was pulled from the water of the Taunton River that was covered in etchings. Some specialists say these etchings are from the Phoenicians, the Norse, and the Portuguese.
What the fuck is that doing there?
Exactly. But they say the origins...
The Phoenicians?
Yeah. Crazy. Now, they don't know the actual origins of these, so they don't know if this is just someone else putting these etchings in place kind of after the fact, which is how my guess that Portuguese might have gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
But really bizarre.
The Portuguese people in that area, but not Phoenicians.
Yep, right? Or the Norse, for that matter.
Right.
Bizarre. In 1963, during construction of a dam, state officials removed the Dighton Rock from the river for preservation, and it is now in a museum in the nearby Dighton Rock State Park. So you can go see this if you want to see it.
Oh man, I kind of do.
I kind of do too. Yeah, we're going to have to make a trip, all three of us.
Yes.
There was also a rock called Profile Rock that was in Freetown Fall River State Forest and is believed to possibly be the face of Chief Massasoit. This was once a sacred space, although it's now covered in graffiti, but in 2024, the rock collapsed and the face no longer exists. So, that's unfortunate.
Like the old man in the mountain.
Yeah, up in New Hampshire. Yep. That's
Mhm.
another unfortunate one.
Erosion's a bitch.
Yep. There's also one specific rock called Anawan Rock along Route 44 in Rehoboth. This rock has an interesting history because there's been a lot of activity around it after King Philip was killed. So back to the history lesson here. Benjamin Church had led his army into the forest after Philip's death to get the rest of the Native Americans that were there. Philip's successor, Chief Anawan, was captured during this time, and that brought the official end of King Philip's war to an end. But stories talk about how Anawan had what was called King Philip's wampum belt, because apparently Philip gave it to him before he was killed. Now, the wampum belt had markings on it that basically told the history of their tribe. Records show that Church took this belt from Anawan, but it's been lost somewhere. Like it doesn't show up anywhere else after that.
Oh, cursed.
Nobody knows where it went, although some think it's likely been destroyed. Soon after that, there seems to be Native American spirits haunting Anawan Rock, and people claim to hear the Algonquin language there. They hear chanting and beating of drums, even though there's nobody there. People also report phantom fires in that area, and they claim to see a full spectral ghost of a Native American chief suddenly standing in front of them and then not there anymore. Yeah.
Weird.
Fucking terrifying.
Yes.
There are also reports of someone going in there and hearing yelling, which they claimed sounded like lutash, which is Algonquin for stand and fight.
Oh.
Yeah, right? Some people believe that these occurrences at Anawan Rock will probably continue until that wampum belt is returned. So, yeah, probably never going to stop.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk about the Phantom Hitchhiker, also known as the Red-Headed Hitchhiker. So the Red-Headed Hitchhiker is another one of those things that gets reported over and over again. The stretch of Route 44 that borders Seekonk and Rehoboth, Massachusetts, is where people often see the spectral traveler. He's usually said to be a well-built man between the ages of 45 and 55, with red hair, and he usually has a beard as well. He's usually dressed in a red flannel shirt with jeans or brown work pants and work boots. Sometimes he's well-groomed and clean. Other times he looks disheveled with overgrown facial hair, dirty and untouched. The earliest written record of this guy being seen was by Charles Turek Robinson in his 1994 book, New England Ghost Files. The story kind of goes like this. And I'd say stop me if you've heard this before, but you've heard something so similar to this before, it's not going to matter. So a couple broke down on Route 44 at about 10 p.m. The woman stayed in the car as the guy went to go out and call for a tow truck, because this is pre-cell phones, apparently. They both had different experiences with a hitchhiker at the same time. The man said he saw the guy standing on the side of the road and tried to talk to him and tell him that they needed help. He said the red-headed man began yelling at him and then disappeared. And he said that as the guy disappeared, he could hear laughing from all directions, and that this continued as he made his way quickly back to the car.
That's really spooky.
Now, the woman who was sitting in the car waiting for the guy to return, heard the voice come over the radio, laughing at her and taunting her. And she had to get out of the car. She was so fucking scared. So usually what people experience is a little different, though. Typically, someone is driving alone down Route 44, and as long as there is an empty seat in the car, he will sometimes just appear in the car.
What?
Yeah. Some people say they see a man on the side of the road and they stop to pick him up, but regardless, the guy will suddenly appear in an empty seat, and if they stop to let him in, he'll get in either the passenger seat or the back seat. But people say that he stays there silent and ignores any questions they ask him. A lot of times these reports say the guy just stares at them and eventually he'll disappear. Now, he either disappears right in front of their eyes, or when they look back to kind of say something or to confirm that he's there, he's just suddenly gone. That's crazy, and I would love to experience that. I'm not going to lie.
I would once again poop my pants.
I don't know. I would love proof of any kind of supernatural anything, so.
Yeah, me too. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna literally poop my pants. I would be, woo!
Yeah, it definitely.
I'm scared just thinking about it.
So needless to say, you're probably the one that will see him, and I'll never see something like that.
Yeah, probably. But the thing is, you'll believe me.
I will, because you've never lied to me about something like that. And if you do, it's like a joke and you would tell me soon after. So I would.
And I've never told a convincing lie in my life, so
it's true.
Wouldn't be the time to start.
No, it wouldn't. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is often referred to as the ledge. It's actually called the Assinet Ledge, and it's a 50-foot rock outcropping overlooking an 80-foot deep rock quarry. It was once owned by the Fall River Granite Company, but it has become associated with a lot of dark things. First, it has a weird amount of abandoned cars that have been left in this quarry. Police say that people like to just steal cars and drive them off this ledge into the water.
Okay.
I
People
mean,
would love to do that in an old
yeah, I was going to say,
an old quarry.
I would
There's one
do
in
that.
Milford that people used to do that. I remember.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, but yeah, I guess in Bell Pond and Worcester had the same problem.
Yeah, it's where you go to smoke weed for the first time, you know?
Exactly. So unfortunately, this location is also the site of at least 18 confirmed suicides.
Oh.
And there's been a lot of accidental deaths from people falling over. Shortly before Halloween in 2007, a 32-year-old man named Paulo Oliveira accidentally fell to his death over the ledge while camping with his girlfriend and his friends. Apparently, he got up to pour something over the edge. Some people say it was gasoline because they had built a fire. And apparently, he lost his footing and fell. And he died of internal injuries. People who have gone to the ledge have reported that they feel a sense of dread and a foreboding feeling, and then they also say that they feel compelled to jump over the side.
Oh, that's scary as hell.
Spooky.
In 2004, a man that was there with his friends and his girlfriend actually just suddenly leapt to his death. His family said that he had no history of depression and never expressed any suicidal thoughts. Even his girlfriend said that he just suddenly jumped. Then there's the ghost. There are a lot.
Ghost? Oh, cool.
There are a lot of reports of people seeing a woman dressed in white leap off the edge, and right before she hits the water, she just disappears. And some say that while they're in the woods, they can hear her screams, but can't explain where it's coming from. Awesome. I want to go.
Yeah, have fun with that.
You don't want to go? Come on, that's fun. So we're going to talk a little bit now about UFO sightings in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Oh my goodness. How much of this stuff plays in?
I'm telling you, this is crazy. How have we never heard of this?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's actually crazy that I haven't heard of this.
The first reported documented UFO sighting in the Bridgewater Triangle was in May of 1760.
Holy
Oh, they were
shit.
thinking about them back then. Oh, wow.
Well, the report just said that a lot of people saw a ball of fire in the sky.
Well, that's horrifying.
Yeah. So there's that. And that's all the information about this 1761. There's not a lot, obviously. However, in 1908, on Halloween night, 2 undertakers were driving a carriage from West Bridgewater, and shortly after 3 a.m., they say what they described as an unusually strong lantern that lit up the sky. They thought
Weird.
it might be a hot air balloon, but, they can't prove that, obviously. And then in the spring of 1979, there was the highest amount of documented UFO sightings that had taken place in the Triangle. News outlets and police were getting bombarded with reports as dozens and dozens of people were calling them in. May 23rd, 1979, 2 newsmen, Jerry Lopez and Steve Sabracia of WHGH, said they both saw what looked like a baseball diamond-shaped thing with a series of lights on it emitting a green substance or light. They said,
Oh, a real classic UFO.
They said they pulled over to watch it and that there were sparks coming off it at times, and it even seemed so close to them that they felt they could throw something at it.
Oh my God.
Please tell me they didn't.
Lopez was an Air Force veteran, and he said that he knew from his experience that there was nothing in the U.S. arsenal like that at that time.
That's really weird.
Numerous other reports came in and people described it the exact same way. There were 30 plus other sightings of that particular UFO. In January of 1991, a green disc was seen in Bridgewater flying slowly at only 50 feet off the ground with a huge spotlight that was seen by dozens of people.
Oh my God. That's a lot of people to have seen this shit.
And yet, we still don't know anything about, how did I not know about this?
Yeah.
So, as we come closer to the end, we still have a little bit to go here, but we're actually now going to step out of the Bridgewater Triangle's unusual, paranormal, unexplainable things, and we're going to cover some real-life heinous crimes and cult activity. Because, of course, you can't have a triangle this creepy without some real shit.
For real, it'd be weird if there wasn't.
Right? It was only the supernatural. So in the late 70s and 80s, police kept finding evidence that showed there was probably a devil-worshipping cult in the area. They were finding underground bunkers that were used to carry out rituals, complete with altars and pentagrams and evidence of animal sacrifice. Satanic panic maybe a little bit, but still.
Right.
There was a famous story from the 80s when a bog worker said that trespassers kept coming to a shack of his on his property that was out kind of at the edge of the forest. He said they were all dressed in black robes, and when he contacted the police, investigators found a huge pentagram on the ground, and they saw a ritualistic design made of stones. They removed the stones and the pentagram, but when they returned later to the scene that following day, everything was back and set up again.
Ooh.
There were also reports of cattle mutilations in 1998 as a group of calves had been found badly mutilated in a clearing. There has also been reports of cats and dogs found mutilated and left in a ritualistic fashion. And then there came the murder of Mary Lou Aruda. On September 8th, 1978, 15-year-old cheerleader Mary Lou Aruda was seen riding her bike near her home in Raynham, Massachusetts at 4 p.m. At 4:30 p.m., a boy found her bicycle abandoned by the side of the road. There were skid marks from a car and a cigarette beside the bike. Witnesses came forward and said that they saw a green car with a black racing stripe speeding away from the scene at about that time. police were able to get enough descriptions of everything to put together a sketch of a suspect. However, a month later, they still didn't really have any leads. But then they found a decomposing body on November 11th, 1978.
Oh.
It was Mary Lou Aruda, and she was found tied to a tree in the Freetown State Forest. She had been beaten and battered brutally and tied to that tree alive in a standing position.
Holy crap.
When she lost consciousness, it was the weight of her body that caused her to asphyxiate.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Yeah. They did determine that she had died the same day that she went missing, but she had been left out there for over a month tied to that tree.
Oh.
As a result of that, though, authorities were able to identify a suspect because he had not only did he match the sketch perfectly, but when you hear his criminal past, you're actually going to be kind of pissed. Not going to lie.
Oh, great surprise.
His name was James Cater, and he was, of all things, a fucking donut maker.
What?
Right? Weirdo. He owned a car that matched the bright green 1976 Opel with a black racing stripe. They also found out that he smoked the exact same brand of cigarettes that was found at the scene. And he had been in trouble with the law before. In 1968, he was found guilty of assault with the intent to rape,
Holy shit.
assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and the kidnapping of a young woman in Andover, Massachusetts.
Oh, God.
Oh, you're going to get pissed.
Fucker.
You're going to get so much more pissed.
Oh no. You're gonna say this happened a bunch of times.
This is a part where he gets let out.
He had abducted a 13-year-old North Andover
Oh,
girl from her
God.
bicycle and had tied her to a tree.
No.
He had pled guilty to that and served a prison sentence, but was let out.
There it is.
Great.
Oh, my God.
According to police, he had also run a woman off the road with his car and tried to abduct her. And he also attacked a 63-year-old woman in a cemetery with a leg of a chair.
Jesus.
What?
Yeah. And somehow this guy wasn't, I don't know, they weren't keeping tabs on him. This girl, Mary Lou, should still be alive.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was finally sentenced to life in prison for Mary Lou Aruda's death. And today there is a soccer field named after Mary Lou, as well as a street called Mary Lou Court. Not that that fixes anything. James Cater died of cancer on January 23rd, 2016, and up until his death, he continued to claim that he had nothing to do with her murder. Which, yeah, okay, bullshit. Right. And the final topic we're going to discuss now is the case of Carl Drew and Robin Murphy. On October 13th, 1979, Detective Alan Sylvia was called to the Fall River High School, where the brutally mutilated corpse of a young woman was found under bleachers by two women who were walking along the track that morning.
Oh.
She was found face down in a pool of blood. Her wrists were bound in front of her with fishing line, and she was nude from the waist down.
No.
Oh.
Her body was unbelievably beaten, and her face and head had literally been crushed.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Near the scene, police found bloody rocks, and they believed she had actually been stoned to death. The medical examiner's report said her skull had been crushed by multiple blows, and there were several stab wounds to her head. She was eventually identified as 17-year-old Doreen Levick, and she was a runaway from New Bedford and had been working as a sex worker in the area. Unfortunately, after the discovery of her body, the trail went cold pretty quickly, and it wasn't for another 3 months that they found another victim in the Freetown State Forest by a man walking his dog that stumbled upon the body. Now, since Massachusetts gets so fucking cold in the winter, the temperature left the body almost perfectly preserved. They determined that she had been out there for about 3 months.
Oh my God.
The victim was partially nude, badly beaten, and her face had been crushed. She was
Oh.
She was laid out and posed on a huge stone that investigators described as resembling an altar. There were also little pieces of concrete found in her hair, and the medical examiner determined that a concrete block had been used to crush her head. So she also was likely stoned to death as well.
Oh.
She was later identified as 19-year-old Barbara Rasposa. She had also been working as a sex worker in Fall River at the time of her death. She had been reported missing 3 months earlier, around the same time that Doreen had been found.
Oh.
Now, she was last seen with and reported missing by her boyfriend, Andre Maltius. Maltius was a pedophile, a rapist, and a sexual sadist, and yet he claimed he was a devout Christian.
Bull crap.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Maltius came forward to the police and claimed that he and Barbara were part of a devil-worshipping group. He said it was a group of about 10 people, and that one of the high leaders was a man by the name of Carl Drew, who was 25. Maltius claimed that this was the kind of satanic cult where they actually worshipped Satan, sacrificed animals, and tried to do Satan's bidding. You okay?
No, I mean, just like, people are fucked.
Now, the group, at least in part, were also sex workers, with Carl Drew acting as their pimp.
This is, what
That's
the fuck?
some
Right?
crap.
The investigators were able to interview a couple of the members of this group, and that's when they met a woman named Karen Marsden. Karen Marsden was a member of the group and a 20-year-old sex worker. Detective Alan Sylvia said he talked to her and she was terrified, but she wanted to talk but was having trouble. She denied knowing anything at first, but she finally admitted that the group was led by Carl Drew, who went around calling himself the son of Satan.
Oh no. No, not the son of Sam.
She then led the investigators to the place in the forest where they performed these devil-worshipping rituals. Carl had apparently taken her to a specific area in the forest one time and told her that he killed people there and threw them into the water. When police searched around the area, that while she was showing them all this, they found pentagrams everywhere, as well as makeshift altars and evidence of animal sacrifices. Karen then suddenly broke down out of nowhere and said that she was terrified that she was going to be next. Detective Silva asked her to agree to protective custody, but she said she was too afraid not only of Carl Drew, but she was afraid that the devil himself would get her. She would not agree to protective custody, and at her request, Detective Sylvia brought her to St. Mary's Cathedral. That same night, she disappeared.
Oh no.
2 months later, on April 13th, 1980, a man walking in the woods found a toothless skull.
Oh, God.
It was Karen Marsden.
Oh.
Investigators also found hair, teeth, and some of her belongings scattered over a 2-mile radius where they believed Karen had been dragged.
Oh.
Her body was never found, and they believed that these killers literally destroyed her body because all they ever found was her head. At that point, members of the cult became worried that they were going to be suspects in Karen's murder, so some of them agreed to let police listen in on their phone conversations. After 6 months of this, police finally got a break. A 17-year-old girl named Robin Murphy said on a call, quote, "I killed Karen and they'll never figure it out because I took my clothes off when I did it," unquote.
That's
Ugh.
insane.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is pre-DNA testing, so I guess that's how you think. I don't know.
Yeah. Ugh.
Robin Murphy started off as a sex worker and in her early teens, but at this time, she was helping run things alongside Carl Drew. She was essentially a female pimp working with Drew. Detective Sylvia said that people around her really feared her, so police immediately arrested her and Carl Drew. Now, police believe that Doreen was killed because she was an outsider who was coming into their territory, like as a sex worker. And,
Mm-hmm.
and because she was sort of a freelancer doing her own thing, they couldn't control her or make any money off of her. So they killed her. Now, Barbara Rasposa, they believe she was killed because she knew too much about Murphy's hand in Doreen's murder. So investigators believed Karen Marsden saw Doreen's murder, and that's why she was so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Robin Murphy agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder for Karen Marsden if she would get immunity in the other cases if she agreed to testify about Carl Drew. She said that Drew ordered that Karen be killed right after Detective Silver dropped her off at St. Mary's Cathedral. They had been following them that day. And when they saw her get dropped off, that's when he made the order and they grabbed her. The way Robin Murphy described Karen's murder was horrific. Karen was raped and tortured before being brutally killed, and she had her hair and fingernails ripped out while she was still alive.
Oh, that's so fucking awful.
And it's also believed that because the skull was found toothless, they probably pulled her teeth as well.
Oh, God.
Oh.
She had been savagely beaten over the head with stones until Drew took her and threw her over his knee to snap her neck.
Oh.
He also slammed her head into the ground over and over in order to make sure her neck was broken. They then cut off her head and kicked it around. The other cult members, they would kick around the head like a soccer
What is
ball.
What is this, hacky sack here?
Yeah.
Like, what's
Right.
Yeah, oh.
Her fingers had been removed so they could steal rings that she was wearing, and they carved a large X across her chest. Not that it was going to matter because her body was never found.
Oh.
Robin Murphy did testify in court to her part in the murders and also said that Drew was the mastermind. Unfortunately, no one was convicted in the murder of Doreen because they didn't have enough evidence to tie anyone to her murder. Now, Barbara's boyfriend, you know, that pedophile and all-around awful person,
Mm-hmm.
he was convicted of her murder and he would die behind bars. So, good. Fuck him.
Slay.
Carl Drew was convicted of Karen Marsden's murder on March 13th, 1981, and is still serving life in prison. However, there's a fucking movement to free him. People who believe
What?
he's innocent. I'm not
How?
kidding. I'm not
What
kidding.
kind of happy horse shit is that?
I will not read those pages to find out why people think this guy should be released. Fuck them and fuck him. But
Yep.
But oh my God. Yeah.
That's twisted.
I'm sure there are people out there that think fucking Diddy's innocent too, you know? Fuck these people. So Robin Murphy also got life in prison for her role in Karen's murder. However, in 2004, she got paroled after only 15 years.
What?
But she was sent back in prison in 2011 because a state trooper stopped a car that she was driving in Revere, and the person that she had with her had a felony record for possession of heroin. And in case you don't know, if you're on parole, you're not supposed to be associating with known criminals, so she got thrown back in prison.
Well, there you go.
However, Murphy applied for parole again in 2012, and she told the parole board that the woman had only been an acquaintance and she had no idea who was really in the car with her. She was just giving her a ride. They denied her parole. Yeah, they denied her parole.
Yeah, good.
However, again, in May of 2024, at 61 years old, Robin Murphy was granted parole a second time.
Oh my God.
The parole board indicated that they based their decisions on several factors: her traumatic history, victim empathy, and addiction issues, and the fact that she had earned a bachelor's degree from Boston University while in prison. They also noted that she worked inside the prison in a training program that matched dogs with military veterans. And these are the reasons they decided they could release her back into society. And that is the final part of the Bridgewater Triangle.
Holy
My
crap.
God.
Yeah, and believe me, like I said, I cut out so much. This could have been 3 times as long.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some documentaries around for
Exactly.
the Bridgewater Bigfoot.
I want to know more about the Puckwudgies. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's
Yep.
definitely, I want to know about them. It's giving Hobbit. It's giving, I want to know.
Honestly, it made me think of that little imp from Harry Potter.
Dobby.
Dobby. Yes,
yeah, the
Dobby.
elves.
I never really watched Harry Potter, so I have no idea. But that's what it made me. The description kind of made me think of.
They're very unfuzzy in Harry Potter.
That's true too. Yeah, but I don't know. Either way, it's a bizarre thing, and it's only a handful of, I don't know, what, 20 to 50 miles away from us. So how do we not know
Yeah.
this? Crazy. So yeah,
Fascinating and weird for a special episode for the locals. Everyone get out there.
Yeah,
Hear
go
what's
out.
going on there.
yeah.
Field trip.
Go out. Let us know what you find. Anyone traveling to the area, make sure you add that to your list of stops and comment on what you see or didn't see. We're curious. So, and if we
Especially
ever,
if you see a Puckwudgie.
yeah, and if we
Yes.
ever go, we'll make sure we do a special little add-on episode.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Once again, I am Janus Dead,
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye.